Speaking of defense, let's bring in our guest here in studio this week. He played defensive back at BYU in 2009 and 2010. Also football analyst for BYU-tv on the pre- and post-game shows. Pops in on BYU Sports Nation from time to time. Our pleasure to welcome in our friend and colleague, Brian Logan. Good to have you here.
Glad to be here, finally.
Finally, well, you know, we had to work up to this moment.
How long has it been? Every week I've been waiting for the invite.
I've been looking at Brian's arms every day in the gym when I see him, and I told Dave we can't invite him until I'm convinced that he's at his peak and that those biceps are going to look good on the show. And you know, last week I saw you at the gym, and I'm like, you know what? It's time. It is time.
He also
he's
said,
looking good. He's fit enough to come on the show. Now we got to bring him on.
And it wasn't going to be a gun show competition. So Blaine went to the East Coast before you were allowed to actually bring your guns in here, because there's a limit on the guns.
Dang, those look good.
See that that's separated by hundreds of thousands of miles right there.
Those are real? Those aren't yours.
Hey, for a minute here, let's announce the Wise Guys starting lineup, and we'll get Belo's take on that too.
Sure.
Now that camp's over, we're going to roll out the 22 and then the kickers as well, and let everyone know that if the game were tonight against Sam Houston at Lavelle Edwards Stadium, the starting quarterback obviously would be Keaton Slovis, over 9,000 career passing yards and 68 touchdowns. He's the guy to lead them in.
Yeah, I feel like he doesn't transfer in unless he's the guy. That's what we were just talking about, right? And Aaron Roderick went out and felt like he was a perfect fit for the offense with a lot of feedback from John Beck, who trains Keaton. And he didn't do anything in spring ball to change any of our opinions that he would be the guy on opening night, especially if they played tomorrow. Keaton Slovis would be the guy for sure. And I'm expecting Keaton to step up in a big way and take a leadership role this summer during summer workouts. But I think he's going to thrive in this offense. So he'd be the quarterback if they had to play tomorrow.
Starting at running back, 6'3", 230-pound Aiden Robbins, over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns at UNLV last season. He's got a couple of years to play. Bilo, how would you like to have to tackle Aiden Robbins?
I would make a business decision.
To take a dive?
No. Actually, let's take a step back. So a business decision is you're diving at the ankles and you're hoping and praying that you're not going to touch him at all, right? Now that I'm much more wiser, I would get blocked on purpose. That way I don't have to
just get taken out.
Just get taken out. That way I don't have to go into
film. It's not your fault.
It's not. I just, I would much rather my coach make fun of me for not being able to get off a block versus diving at somebody's ankles.
All right, that's the sound of a mature former defensive back who had a lot of tackles.
Interesting thing about Aiden for all of us is we were so anxious to see him in spring ball, but we saw him early on. He had some minor injuries that kept him from going full speed, and they didn't tackle him to the ground ever. So he'll be good to go, but we really haven't seen what we hoped in spring ball. But all I needed to know was when Kelly Papinga told us, remember when he came on the show, Dave, and he said, yeah, when I was at Boise State last year and we played them, we game planned because we knew he was their weapon. So we put everything together that we could to stop this guy, and he still rushed for over 100 yards on us. That's all I needed to hear. Yeah. And Boise State was very good defensively last year, so he is going to be fun to watch. They've got great depth at running back next year, but Aiden Robbins is going to be a fun one.
Starting at tight end, 6'6", Isaac Rex. He's got 21 career touchdowns at BYU, and we have every reason to believe they will attack over the middle with Isaac Rex.
Well, and Isaac's going to be healthy, right? Yeah. And Bilo, we talked about this on some of our shows this last year. He knows that he really couldn't cut on that ankle last year. He was not 100%. It was maybe 70%. But he's so skilled and talented and big and with a catch radius that they had to put him on the field even at that. He is healthy and will be even more healthy come fall. I think we see the Isaac Rex we saw 2 years ago, that you get inside the 15, he's a touchdown machine because he's so long and such a big target in the end zone.
I agree. Starting at receiver, 6'4" Chase Roberts, 6'4" Keanu Hill, and 5'11" Cody Epps. Bilo, what do you think of that trio?
I'm excited to see Cody. It was a surprise for me. I didn't know much about him until he got his opportunity. And somebody that is a little bit more shifty, breakaway speed, and for whatever reason, he just gets open, right? So I think he understands football even at a younger age with not that much experience. But somebody that can, I don't want to compare him to Puka, but somebody that can, beat you deep, but also beat you in the short game, and then break one tackle, make somebody miss, and then go. I'm excited to see that. It's hard. I'm smiling because when was the last time BYU had three weapons that they can go to, but then one guy that was dynamic as Cody is all in the same field?
Yeah, and healthy. We were going to have that last year, but Gunner and Puka were never healthy enough on the field at the same time. And then Cody got hurt, and then Roberts came in and he got banged up. We do know, Blaine, that they're going to shop for a couple more guys in that receiving core, and maybe somebody who could actually pop in ahead of one of those three, which is hard to imagine.
Yeah, what they're really looking for in the transfer portal is they need what they would call a lid lifter. That's a term I like to use, where somebody that can get down the field, either vertical on the sideline or down the middle of the field, and cause that secondary to just turn and run, so that you create bigger seams and gaps between the linebackers and the safeties. So somebody that can get out, great speed and ability to get deep, and then will take the lid off of that defense. And, both Puka and Gunner could do that last year. Now, I realize neither of them were healthy the whole season. Cody has the potential, but he's more of a get me the ball in space underneath, let me run routes, catch the ball, I'll make people miss. He's not really that guy that just go run by people. And neither are we see Keanu and those guys catch deep balls. They take advantage of their size a lot. But I'm talking about a 10-3, 100 meters, 10-400 meters kind of a guy. The defense is just go, oh, crap, I just need to get my back pedal right now, guys. I know they're trying to find somebody like that to complement this really, really good group that we just talked about.
Maybe they should go look for a track star.
A track star.
In the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And it's we talk about this a lot. Finding guys with certain attributes that you want, right, and then develop them and make them into a football player. I'm not sure if a transfer portal type of guy, if you can do that, depending on how much time he has, available. Right. But I think thinking out the box a little bit and maybe recruiting some guys on our track team and testing things out, or maybe finding somebody on another track team around the nation that has experience, playing football as well.
All I know is I was at practice the other day and Keanu Hill walked past me and I said to the guys, I go, that right there is a Big 12 receiver, a Big 12 body, and he was huge, Blaine, right up until he went over and stood by the offensive line, which might be the deepest position on the team. Roll out our starting five from the offensive line. Yeah,
so we're going to go with Kingsley. We've already talked about him. Somata is 6'6", 315, and I'm going to give him the nod at left tackle. And then Paul Miley at left guard, played center at Utah, started a bunch of games.
He's 320. All these guys are big, right?
Yeah. Connor Pay at center, who is such a good anchor to that offensive line. The last couple of years, really, at 6'5" and 312. Juan Lapawahu at 6'4" and 310 at the right guard. And then I'm going to give the nod to Caleb Etienne, coming in from Oklahoma State, started 13 games at left tackle last year, at right tackle at 6'7" and 330 pounds. And I mentioned like Braden Keim at 6'8" and 300 plus. The Solid Ty, a transfer who also has looked really, really good in spring ball. Those guys could also play a factor and find their way into the starting lineup. But if not, it gives BYU some nice depth. I just gave you 7 guys there that I think are quality players that can play on that offensive line. It's a big, physical, nasty group that should be really dominating and really compete well in that league.
Who do you think is most happy about that group, Keaton Slovis or Aiden Robbins?
It's a tie. It has to be a tie.
I'm going to say Aiden. I'm going to say Aiden.
They can both really pass block. Or that line can really pass block. We know they can do that. I don't think Keaton Slovis loved the offensive line that they had at Pittsburgh. So I think he's going to be very grateful. And what a jump in talent level in front of him this will be for Aiden Robbins.
Yeah, for sure.
Keith Slovis had some quality talent in front of him when he was at USC for a couple of years, right? So he knows what those guys that size look like and what a really good line looks like, because they were really good his first couple of years. But Aiden Robbins, this is such a step up in talent level on the offensive line from what he had. He'll have the biggest smile on his face when there's some giant holes for him to run through.
That's what I'm saying. You know, I always will tell this story all the time. I remember my junior year. So I played Oklahoma. That was my first game, and I had that D1 kind of look on my face, like, oh my gosh, this is this D1 football. Then by halfway through, things kind of settled down. I made a few plays here and there, and I felt like I belonged. Then we played Tulane, which was like, wait, what conference? I don't even know. Conference USA, something like that, or Sun Belt. And when I tell you there was maybe 50 people in the stadium watching us, they were literally all of our fans, right? And so just a program that just wasn't that good when we played. And I kind of got a little bit, like a little swag. I was like, oh, this is easy. Okay. And then we played Florida State at home.
Yeah.
And I remember I saw I thought it was a tight end running with me. It was a screen to my side. And I'm down the field and I'm looking, I was like, what is this tight end doing over here? Like, and I look up and it's the tackle. And he's like 6'6", 6'7". I think he ended up getting drafted too, like a second round. And just lean, and he looked like a forward playing basketball. And I remember talking to Brandon Bradley about it because he's from Florida, and he was like, man, like the HTC and kids that coming out of Texas and Florida, like we're just different. It's just way different than California kids. And that was my first eye opener that there's levels. Yeah. There's literally levels in college football, especially when you start to look at the conferences. So yeah, I think he's going to be looking his chops.
BYU-tv football analyst Brian Logan's on the Wise Guys this week. Let's roll out the defensive starters for the game, which let's say is in 5 minutes. So these are the guys that are taking the field, and we mentioned them a moment ago. Let's start with those linebackers, Blaine.
Yeah, let Ben Bywater at 6'3" and 235 pounds. He looks like Hercules when you see him. This guy is, man, he plays the part. Like, he looks like an NFL backer, can run and is physical. He's led the team in tackles the last couple of years. It won't be any exception this year. Alongside of him, he's 6'3", 215. I think Max is going to be more like 220 to 225 by the time we get to fall season. Is Max Tooley, who's so good in space and so physical. He needs to put a little weight on. He's so physical, he's going to knock himself out there. Yeah. And then, remember, we just talked about this. At 6'3" and 230 pounds, the Utah State transfer. And I don't even know if we're saying his last name right, Dave. AJ Von Pachna?
I think Von Packnan.
Von Packnan?
Yeah, we're going to call him AJ.
We have to ask him, but then you know what? That's not going to be good enough. We're going to have to ask his mom to actually find out.
That's where we get the truth.
That's when we find out how you really say it.
Von Packen, I believe, is that's what I've heard the most.
Von Packen. Well, so Ben, Max, and AJ at those linebackers, as I already mentioned previously, that's as good as anybody has from a talent level. That is the heart and soul of this defense. You keep those three guys healthy, you're going to get a tremendous amount of production out of those guys.
Starting at cornerback, All-American Eddie Heckard, the transfer from Weber State, and Jacob Robinson. Heckard's 5'10", Robinson's 5'11", and they should be solid at the corners. What do you think of those two, Bilo?
I've come to love everything about Jacob starting last year. And actually, no, starting 2000. 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. I remember I was on set with you guys, and we were playing Utah, and he had made this play in the end zone, and I turned to Uncle B and I was like, who is that? And he started breaking him down, and I said, and then he made 2 more plays later on in that game, and I said, that's going to be the best cornerback coming out of BYU.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Period.
So like, what?
And I was at the pro day, and on the sideline, I was talking to Rod Daniel, former defensive back, and he played 4 years in the NFL, and he's playing still in Canada now, and he trains a couple of kids, and he said, you know what I love about Jacob is his work ethic. He never misses any sessions with me, and he's like a sponge. Everything that I say to him, he takes it and he applies it immediately. And we all know, what happens when we take knowledge and apply it, it becomes wisdom.
Yeah.
And so it seems like he has everything working for him, and and right now too, which I think will really help him get to the next level and some eyeballs, is he's trying to return some punts and kicks as well. So
good.
If he can get that going, man, I think he has a good chance.
All right, the starting safeties, Blaine.
Yeah, I think Micah Harper, who's a proven entity, really came on last year. I saw him make some hits in spring ball on live days where I was just like, oh my goodness, he's just such a great physical presence. And so I think he'll get the nod at strong safety. And then Malik Moore, who hopefully people haven't forgot about, but a guy with great range that started free safety the year before last, sat out last year, got injured, I think in the first game of the season, and then sat out and redshirted last season. He's back and healthy for his senior campaign. And that gives him a lot of range in the back end of that defense. He covers a lot of ground and has good ball skills. We saw him have multiple pickoffs 2 years ago. Pretty solid safety group. They're really looking for some depth in that safety position, and so I think that the 2s and 3s are still up for grabs. I think they may be looking for some help in the transfer portal at the safety position as well, because it's a very talented first group, but a group where they need to find some depth.
The defensive line, like the offensive line, is a deep group of candidates now, especially as the portal has brought some strength to them. You got the returner Tyler Batty, who's 6'5", 273 and healthy and loving this new defense. We had a chance to visit with him. Isaiah Banya, 6'4", 235, transfer from Boise State. John Nelson's moved inside at 6'4", 275. And then, Blaine, you like either Nisa Mahe or Caden Haas, two guys right about the same height and 315, 305 pounds between them.
Yeah, and extremely strong lower bodies. And it's interesting because I feel like Nisa and Caden will be big beneficiaries of the new scheme defensively. They're not as long as some of the guys we've seen inside at nose, right? And so when you're asking them to, engage an offensive lineman and kind of hold them at bay and play two gaps, a little tougher for these guys, but they're both very explosive off the line of scrimmage and extremely strong. So when you allow them to play through half a player and get to a gap and get to the heel line of the offense and then hold their ground, I think we're gonna watch them and go, wow, these guys are way better than we gave them credit for. I think this scheme fits their skill set really well. So I think that they'll flourish in that. And then, and there's so much depth on that D line. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that could vie to start. And if they don't start, remember, they're going to rotate D linemen in there. That's a position where you rotate guys. Guys like Blake Mangelson, Jackson Cravens, who was really good at Boise State. He could find himself in the starting lineup, if not as a regular rotator playing downs. Josh Singh, Isaiah Moa. They're just, and then there's a couple transfers. Remember, David Lodge, who committed from Snow, who's an All-American defensive tackle down there. And Sellison, the transfer from Weaver. So there is a lot of depth on that D-line. D-line was a position we were all worried about when the season ended last year. It's a position I'm not worried about at all anymore. It's one of the deepest positions on the field now. And I feel like the gets that they got in the transfer portal, along with developing some of the guys who are in the program, give them a two deep that's very formidable and will compete well in that league.
Ryan Rico's going to handle the punting. The place kicking, Justin Smith, Will Farron, maybe a couple other guys. That seems to be a little shaky. We're going to miss Jake Oldroyd, the all-time leading scorer in BYU history. And he went through his ups and downs. And when he was down, he was down. But most of his career, he was up. And there were a number of those years when BYU got inside the 40, they knew they were going to have 3 points. And that's a game changer now when you go, I hope we can make this field goal.
Yeah, it changes, I think, defensively. Well, it can go one or two ways. You can get mad and frustrated, like I did at times. But I think also from an offense perspective, it changes how you play call, right?
Yeah.
Same thing on the defense. We would say, well, because we know we don't we can't score points easy. This is 2010 when Bronco took over. We were extremely aggressive, especially when it came to trying to flip the field, right? So anytime the ball was, anytime the offense was backed up that we were playing against, Bronco blitz, just because we needed every single blade, every single yard to try to help our offense out because we couldn't score and we couldn't kick field goals. And so I think this is a position where they need to look at in the transfer portal, or again, be creative and maybe go find somebody in the rugby team, on the soccer team, right? Because going out to practice, the few times that I went out, whenever the period for kicking happened, I loved how the entire team, actually everybody at practice, literally except for me, went around the kicker and would make noise. They'd turn the music up and they're throwing stuff and bottles are throwing. I mean, it was chaotic. And they weren't making them. They weren't making the field goals. So to me, I think that's a place they have to address.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they do once we get into August and fall camp. So those are the Wise Guys starting lineups. Which player, Brian, are you most interested in seeing on September 2nd?
I'm gonna say somebody that you guys didn't mention, or maybe you have. Isaiah Glasker.
Oh yeah.
Outside linebacker. Every time I was at practice, and I would look up and say, oh, who was that? Who made that interception? Or who did this? Or who did that? It was him.
He's got a little Van Noy in him.
He reminds me 100% of Kyle, and it's hard to compare great players like Kyle to anybody because Kyle's in his own league. But as far as the instincts, and as far as the playmaking ability, Kyle at that time when he was a freshman, it was so random to us. We were like, we don't care that you don't know anything about the playbook or the scheme or whatever the case is. You get in and you make plays. So there's something to that. Isaiah seems a little bit more polished in football IQ at this time in his career. But very long, 6'5". I didn't think he was as big as he is. I think he's like 240, 220. I was talking to Justin Anderson, director of player personnel, and he said this is from the ACC going to being at Virginia. We're able to see guys that are prototypes, and Isaiah has everything that we're looking for as far as height, weight, speed. And he said something, that taught us a lot was arm length, right? And how long is somebody and what that does for the quarterback in passing lane. So, I mean, he was breaking it down, and it made a lot of sense of why every time I looked up, a ball was padded, he had a pass breakup, or it was an interception, especially in crucial times. So I don't know what that depth chart looks like from a rotation standpoint, if he will rotate, but
he'll be in there.
He's made enough plays for me, from what I've seen, that he should be in there.
Brian Logan on the Wise Guys started in all 24 games during his 2 years at BYU. Finished with 95 tackles, including 68 solos, 5 interceptions, all that at 5'6" and 185 pounds. Before Blaine asks you 5 quick questions, and we'll get you out of here, let me ask you this. What was it like to come from junior college, outside of the predominant faith on campus, and what did you do to make it work for you and have it impact your life the way it has?
That's the unfair question to ask me, because
on the Wise Guys we ask all the questions, don't we, Blaine? It
was so different for me, and I think obviously I've had a great experience. I've had other people say that I'm a fan favorite. I don't consider myself. I had other people say that.
You tell us all the time you were a fan favorite. What are you talking about?
I know, I do. I know. That's why I said that. And I had the best experience. I believe I'm an advocate at the school. But something, interesting with me is I was living the honor code before I got to BYU.
Yeah.
When I graduated high school, I almost didn't graduate, and graduated, completely changed my life around. Stopped drinking, stopped doing drugs, partying, went back to church. And I stopped having sex, everything. And so before I even knew about the honor code and what BYU was about, I was living this way. And I remember when Coach Hill called me the first time, and he was like, "Hey, BYU's a little bit different. You know, it's a religious school, and there's an honor code." And he's like, "There's no drinking." I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "You know, no drugs." I was like, "Okay, I'm an athlete." And he was like, and no sex. And I was like, "Okay, I'm not doing that anyway." You know, so to me, it was very easy for me to come in and fit right in, literally fit right in, because I was already living, you know, the lifestyle. Prior to that, but what I appreciate the most about my experience is that even now to this day, I can freely talk about, you know, religion, God, or whatever. And you guys know this, and people that are close to me know this. I always make jokes about, you know, referencing Bible scriptures, and you know, just randomly talking about theology. So I think I appreciate that the most, that I can be in an environment where it's not looked upon as something weird, or somebody's, you know, rolls their eyes, or somebody goes, "Oh, shut up," or here comes this Christian, right? But I think the thing that I've seen from other players that are double minorities, Black and non-Mormon, is just the love, and you think it's fake at first until you know, start to have these experiences, and you go, man, you know, people really do love you. They really do want the best for you. And they're here to support you in any way possible. And, you know, a lot of guys in general, just you know, Black kids and stats, when you think about them growing up in single parent households, which I was, right? That's huge for guys, you know, like myself, growing up in certain environments, coming here and feeling the love from everybody. And I think every young man wants to believe and feel like they have a place. And that they belong, and I think that's what BYU, you know, offers. Outstanding.
The great Brian Logan. Blaine, you got 5 questions for him?
Yeah, and Brian, you're not supposed to think about these ones. It's the first thing that comes to your head.
Okay.
You ask these questions, right? So
I hope this can be censored. Then.
And we're documenting it.
That's right. So first thing we're gonna start with is your favorite sports movie.
Remember the Titans.
Okay, good.
That's very, very popular one, and I think it's mine as well. We've had some really strange, unusual ones that I didn't even know were sports movies, but that's pretty mainstream. So you're pretty tame so far. Okay, your favorite singer or band?
Oh, that's easy. Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne. I feel like that's old school. That's old school. I like Lil Wayne. You know,
Lil Wayne.
Yep.
So that's a good one. Okay, favorite breakfast cereal?
Oh, man, you can't ask me this question.
That just happened.
I just found out.
You just got asked.
I just found out some bad stuff about breakfast cereals, so I don't eat it no more. But when I did eat it, it was Reese's Puffs.
Reese's Puffs? I've never even had those.
They're amazing. I wouldn't recommend eating them in America. In other countries, you can.
That's a whole nother show.
You know, I'm a conspiracy theorist.
That's a whole nother show.
We by the way, Brian, we definitely advocate on this show for breakfast cereals that have as much sugar as possible. So you're right in line.
Yeah.
So Dave is a Captain Crunch
The health department loves us.
And I'm an Apple Jacks and
Apple Jacks is good.
Cinnamon Life guy. So, but we respect all sugar cereals, just so you know. So that's right in line with what we respect. So, okay, number 4, your favorite BYU moment, and it doesn't have to be on the field. It could be on the field, off the field, anything that you just think of when you think of BYU is a moment that you cherish.
Favorite BYU moment. Probably when we beat Utah. 2009 overtime, and
was that the Andrew George overtime catch?
Yeah.
Were you on the bottom of the pile, or were you on top of it?
Nope, I avoided the pile, but I didn't avoid the stampede, the rush from. And I remember getting into like a fetal position and you know, praying, and Robbie Buckner comes and he grabs me and he goes, "Brian, this way, come this way." So I follow him. And we end up getting lost, right? Like we're literally holding hands through it. This is legit. I probably haven't. I've been, you know, look, I'm from the Bay Area and some rough areas. I've been robbed a couple times. This moment was top 3, I was scared for my life. Like it was, and
Max Hall tells us he was at the bottom of the pile thinking that this was going to be it for him.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy you said that, because that gave a lot of validation and confirmation for how I felt. And the difference with me is that I'm 5'6", right? So I have 6th graders and 7th graders that are bigger than me,
Right.
And so when I lost him again, I went back down, and a fan said, "Hey, Brian, I'll help you." So he picks me up, and then so I'm in the air, and they all, crowd surfed me to the locker.
Nice.
Oh man,
That's a sweet ride.
Yeah.
Sweet ride. Good.
So number 5 is the favorite piece of advice you ever got from Bronco.
When you start to feel empty at a current job is the moment that you're being called to your purpose. So listen to that emptiness, because it'll lead you to getting fulfilled.
Bronco told you that?
Mm-hmm. I remember I'd made some huge accomplishments and my full-time job as a marketer. And I went to his office and I talked to him. He still mentored me all the way up until he left, for Virginia. And I said, Bronco, I did all these things. I broke some records. I'm making tons of money, but I don't feel, I feel like Ecclesiastes, right? It's like all for nothing. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, it's time for your purpose. It's time for you to get into your purpose. And, ever since then, I've been, trying to help and mentor the kids and the athletes, especially, double minorities. But yeah, and things and try to work on a couple of different nonprofits as well. Yeah. I talked to you guys about a pretty, I think big project and opportunity, last year. So yeah, that's the best advice he gave.
You can see Brian this fall on BYU-tv's Game Day, before and after every game on BYU-tv and the BYU-tv app as the Cougars get into the Big 12. Will you come back?
Yep.
I've been waiting. We'll break it all down.
I've been waiting for
You'll hang out more often?
Look, if you guys need like a replacement host, like right now I could be,
because Blaine's gone, you could just be right in.
If you guys need like a guest that you got a flat tire or something, can't make it, then I'm always here for you.
You're on our
guys.
speed dial. We appreciate you. We
Appreciate
enjoy
you guys.
working with you at BYU-tv. We have for years. We all look forward to this big season coming up.
As do I. Appreciate you guys and love you guys.
Brian Logan.
Thanks, Bilo.
Good to have you.